like to call to order the Anderson Township Zoning Commission meeting for July 25th, 2016. And with that, I'd like to entertain a motion from the commission to approve the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Ms. Cavaglio?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. McBride? Aye. Mr. Gothard?
Aye. Secondly, I'd like to entertain a motion. Okay. Yeah, they're on. Secondly,
They're on. We'll just try to make sure we speak into the microphones a little bit better. Okay.
okay. Second, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the March 28th, 2016 Zoning Commission meeting.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Could you call a roll, please?
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Ms. Cavaglio?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Abstain.
Ms. McBride? Aye. Mr. Gothard?
Aye. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the June 6, 2016 Zoning Commission meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Who did the second?
I did.
Mr. Boone?
Abstain.
Ms. Cavaglio?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. McBride?
Abstain.
Mr. Gothard?
Aye. Okay. Now we'll hear case number 2-2016 for the Anderson Township zoning regarding a zone change. Like to keep in mind, this is a public hearing, so we'd like everyone, it is not a question and answer period. It is a statement of facts. If people have previously stated the same facts, you can just say, I agree with previously stated actions. We'd like each individual to limit their conversations or, their statements for about 2 to 3 minutes. And again, all new testimony as we go through. We're here to hear the testimony on both sides. We'll start with staff presentation of the case, and Mr. Drew.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is the Mayerson Company, and this is on behalf of Anderson Township Board of Trustees and 3Gen LLC property owners. The location is at 1339 and 1357 Nagel Road, and the property is zoned B, single-family residence. The request is for a zone change from B, single-family, to DD, which is planned multifamily for the property referenced. And the most recent case history is that a pre-submittal meeting was held on this case on February 23rd, 2016, and the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission heard the case on July the 7th, 2016. A little more on the history of the property, and then we'll get into some slides and some photos. But much of the property is part of a 15-acre tract that has been owned by Anderson Township for several decades, with the initial acquisition in 1957. The southern part contains the Operations Center, which is the Anderson Township Fire Station, the Salt Dome, Public Works Garage, and also the Senior Center is located on this portion of the property. The northern portion of the property has had the most recent use, I guess, would be the field house fields that were used by the Anderson Park District. After that, the property has been largely vacant and unused, except for possible storage by the Public Works Department. Several uses were considered for the site over the years, and then there was an action before our Board of Zoning Appeals for an expansion of a conditional use, the Operations Center essentially. It was proposed to move an expanded Public Works Garage as well as an expanded recycling center, and then a rear access for the facility out to Nagel Road. And this was approved in March of 2010 by the Board of Zoning Appeals. However, the township never constructed the expanded operations facility. This is the site in question, outlined in red. Sorry, I unplugged my pointer. This is Nagel Road here, Pine Terrace. This is Stonegate Drive. The Operations Center is located just to the south of the property. But the majority of this property is owned by Anderson Township, and then this parcel here is the portion that is owned by 3Gen LLC. This is a zoning map of the area in question. Again, this site is outlined in red, and the site is Zone C, B, single family. This area to the south is Zone C, single family. Area to the east, which is Sacred Heart and Pine Terrace, is Zone B. To the north is Zone DD, which is planned multifamily, and then this area is Zone DD. There is a mixture of single-family homes, apartment buildings, multifamily, as well as Sim Manor, which is an apartment community as well. To the south, the zoning is E. This is EPUD, which is Fresh Time, which is under construction. This is the Township Operations Center, the Salt Dome, the Public Works Garage, the Firehouse, Senior Center, Firestone. There is a zoning, Nordica is Zone C as well. And then to the east, there are a mixture of uses, including office, the post office, the dentist office, and then other homes that have been converted to office uses on Nagel, as well as a church in the immediate vicinity. This is the proposal. Again, a multifamily apartment community, proposed 182 units in 3 buildings. The entrance is proposed across from Pine Terrace off of Nagel, with a secondary access to the south through the Township Operations Center. The first building, Building 1, is proposed to be have a lower level parking garage, or I should say parking lower level. It won't be completely underground, but partially underground. And then the building would be 3 stories on top of that. So the total height would be between 3 and 4 stories. The other 2 buildings, Building 2 and Building 3, would be a maximum height of 3 stories. And then affiliated parking, some covered parking for the other buildings, walking trails throughout the development, and it's hard to see on the slide, but a pool, a community pool here for this community, as well as some other amenities in this general area. This is just a parking layout, a little bit more detail. Again, this building would have first level parking, and then the apartment building would be on top of that. These are the site photos. So this is standing, there's a multifamily building right here. So the first photo is standing right behind that building looking south toward the proposed building site, and in the distance is the Salt Dome and the Senior Center, as well as the church. This site is reversed, standing in the Senior Center parking lot looking north at the building site, and again, that's the apartment building that was shown on the picture. This is looking generally in the northeast for the church that's there. And then this area here, this street area, is between the site and Nagel. And again, looking back at the existing existing apartment building. These were sites standing in where the proposed entry would be, looking south on Nagel toward Beachmont Avenue. There is an existing single-family home that is proposed to remain. This is standing in that, again, across from Pine Terrace and the proposed entryway looking north. Again, the opposite direction looking west toward the site. And looking approximately where the parking would start, looking back toward Nagel, back toward Pine Terrace, to give you both viewpoints. This house is proposed to remain. This is looking at the homes on Stonegate and the existing berm that exists with the evergreen trees. And then just looking at some of the area that would be cleared for the proposed development. Further south on Nagel, just to give you, sorry about that, technology, I don't know how to stop that. This is looking at Nagel just to give you an idea of the general neighborhood, but this is further south on Nagel. This is the entrance of Pine Terrace here. and then again looking in the opposite direction to the south toward Beachmont Avenue. So in evaluating zone change, as stated earlier, we did have a pre-submittal meeting in February, as most of you probably attended that meeting. As part of that meeting, and that is just an open house meeting, it's a voluntary meeting by the applicant to get input from the residents on the proposed development prior to pursuing any type of zone change. The concerns raised at that meeting were several. Traffic was one, height of buildings, intensity of the use, talking about just the density of the site, utilities and infrastructure, and again, I think I already said the height of the buildings. So those were some of the neighborhood concerns. As a result of that meeting, the plan has been adjusted slightly to lower the height of the building 1, which was proposed to be 4 to 5 stories tall, and it has been reduced to be between 3 to 4 stories tall. The other buildings have grown slightly larger to accommodate for a loss of a floor on the one multifamily building. So the number of units are pretty much the same. The applicant has conducted a access study and has looked at improvements on Nagel, which we will get to, as far as a southern access. The Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission heard this in July. They recommended approval with 8 conditions, which are in the staff report, and I won't go over all of those. We also have the agency reports. This is routed to all county agencies, including the county engineer, regional planning and development, metropolitan sewer district, soil and water, Cincinnati Water Works, ODOT, fire and rescue, EPA, and the Hillside Trust. So all of those letters are in your packet for your review. They're, hitting on the major ones. A traffic study was submitted to the county engineer, and the applicant has been working with the county engineer on improvements to Nagel. The initial study did not warrant improvements on Nagel, but the applicant is proposing improvements on Nagel, including left turn lanes at the existing Stonegate Drive, Pine Terrace, and the new development. ODOT is requesting a traffic study to look at the impacts on Beachmont Avenue and the surrounding major arterials. Sewer is available. Cincinnati Water Works states that water is available. Fire and rescue listed items as well. And the other, those are the major items. And the county also recommended conformance with the Hamilton County Thoroughfare, which is a half right-of-way of 40 feet. So staff's review as well includes applicable plans. These are adopted plans by the township. So the first one that we look at is the Anderson Township Comprehensive Plan. And the site itself is currently identified. The future land use map identifies it for institutional use. And in 2011, when the site was identified for institutional use, all throughout the township, any property that was either a church, a school, or government-owned property was identified for an institutional for future land use. That is something that regional planning in 2011 asked us to address with the current plan update, which is we're updating in 2016, and that is something that we're looking into to see if it makes sense to identify these properties for something else other than institutional, because institutional uses are allowed in any zoning district, primarily through a conditional use review through our Board of Zoning Appeals. So Hamilton County's review obviously states that the proposed use is not consistent with the future land use category, and we agree. So, but they also looked at the text of the comprehensive plan and the goals as far as types of housing and different land uses in the township. So I don't think I'll go through every single one of the goals of the comp plan because it's in your staff report, but the highlights are up on the PowerPoint. Again, the housing and neighborhoods, we looked at economic development and future land use. So staff feels that the proposed use and the zone change is consistent with the goals of the text of the comprehensive plan. We also look at the zoning resolution. And at this point in time, there are several articles which are listed on the slide, that not enough information has been provided to determine if it is compliant with these articles of the zoning resolution. In zone change applications, sometimes we get the information ahead of time and sometimes we don't get it until the final development plan. So most of these items can be addressed with the final development plan, but we did want to bring your attention, these are the items that we don't have enough information for yet to determine if they're compliant with the zoning resolution. The height of the buildings, the yard and there's discussion on each of these in the staff report, so I don't think I'll go through all of them. The parking requirements, sidewalks, etc. And then the last two plans that we look at, the adopted plans, are the Anderson Trails Plan and the Anderson Township Design Guidelines. With the Anderson Trails Plan, there is a sidewalk and pedestrian pathways identified in the interior of the site, but a sidewalk is required on Nagel along their frontage to connect to existing sidewalks, as well as staff encourages a pedestrian connection both to the south and to the Stonegate neighborhood so that there can be that pedestrian connectivity from Stonegate as well as through this proposed development and to the retail to the south. As far as the Anderson Township Design Guidelines, a few things that we pointed out in our staff report for some of the site planning goals, and again, most of these we couldn't make a determination because not enough information is submitted just yet as far as the design of the buildings, architectural design, and that sort of thing. But as far as site planning goals, we looked at protection from abutting properties through site design, buffering, etc. Encourage increased walking and bicycling by providing safe, attractive, interconnected facilities, and then also preservation of existing natural features, for example, mature trees. And staff is of the opinion that the site design, the entrance off of Pine Terrace, the development actually doesn't start until almost 300 feet from Nagel Road. So in essence, they are keeping a residential character down Nagel Road because the development is situated so far back. And with this application, they are not proposing development up along Nagel Road. There is one existing single-family home, and they are proposing to buffer that, but the remainder of that property along Nagel Road is proposed to be undeveloped. As well as in their application, it stated that buffering would be, a landscaping plan would be identified to include buffering along Nagel as well as existing homes on Stonegate. And again, until we see a landscape plan, we can't necessarily comment on that, but that is one of the recommended conditions from both regional planning and from staff. The multifamily buildings are situated adjacent to other multifamily buildings, the Stonegate multifamily buildings and Sound Manor. One building is situated facing Sound Manor, which is a compatible use. They're both multifamily buildings. The other one is situated with its back with a pool, which is also adjacent to the Stonegate pool, and then other multifamily buildings. The other one is situated adjacent to the church. So as far as site plan, in the Township Design Guidelines, staff felt that they were consistent. So the recommendations, staff recommends approval consistent with Hamilton County Regional Planning's recommendation of approval with the 6 conditions that Regional Planning recommended. I'll leave those up there for just a second so the audience and you all can see that. I'm sorry, the first 6 are the reasons for the approval. It's consistent with themes from the comprehensive plan. Again, I won't go over those, but these are the reasons why staff feels that this should be approved. These are the conditions recommended by regional planning, the majority of which we feel that can be addressed during the final development plan review. There are 8 conditions. And then staff encourages 4 other conditions. Number 9, that the trails within the development shall connect to the existing Stonegate development to the north and the township property to the south. Staff was recommending the 2 large oak trees that you saw in the photos along Nagel be identified and protected during construction and preserved. Number 11, that improvements shall be made to Nagel Road where right-of-way exists to provide left turn lanes to Stonegate Drive, Pine Terrace, and the entrance to the new development. And then number 12, that the secondary point of access to the development be constructed to the south through the Anderson Township property. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Boone, any questions of staff? Okay. Ms. DeBaggio?
Not right now.
Mr. Lewis?
Paul, the list seems quite long of the 8 recommendations and the additional 4. Are we premature in bringing this to the commission without having these addressed?
Yeah, not necessarily, and each development is different, so it's really up to the zoning commission to make that decision. This is a zone change, so we're looking at the appropriateness of the proposed use. Most of these items, staff was of the opinion could be addressed, that they had to be addressed to be compliant with zoning, but didn't necessarily impact whether it was an appropriate land use or not. So the landscaping area, or the landscaping buffering, the setbacks of the, or I'm sorry, the dimensions of the parking area, lighting plan, those sort of things are standard zoning requirements that have to be met. So, but again, that's your choice to
Okay.
decide.
Can you put the picture back up of Nagel, the street itself? Right,
At
go
the
back one.
entrance, or
Yeah, no, just the overall
just the
Nagel,
overall, okay.
I guess maybe looking
This is looking north toward
Looking
Pine
south.
Terrace. You want to look south?
right there, that one.
Okay.
I'm wondering with all the changes to Nagel, the left turn lanes, the sidewalk, what happens to the utilities and the power poles, and are there easements?
Additional right-of-way is required to be compliant with the Hamilton County Thoroughfare Plan. And actually, so I need to,
And that's at the entrance.
that's at the entrance, and there was a, let me scoot up here. I guess this is probably the best. That's probably the best one. So there is a plan in your packet that demonstrated how the applicant felt they could achieve that.
But is there space for the left turn lanes along Nagel and the
It would have to
sidewalks?
be widened. It would have to be widened.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Lewis?
No more, thanks.
Ms. McBride?
I did just have one. Oh, on the aerial, I think we shot, is the salt dome going to be relocated then? If it's
Currently,
not-
no, it's not proposed. The area that would be purchased would be just north of the salt dome and that sidewalk. That sidewalk goes over to Sem Manor.
Can you go back to the aerial? 'Cause
The
it's-
aerial,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason I thought I saw something that wasn't, okay.
Okay.
That's the question that I had.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just make one
Yes,
comment?
ma'am.
I do need to disclose to the commission, I was at the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission meeting when this was heard. I was there for my own case. I was working on something else, as Paul can attest to, but I did just want to make the commission aware that I was at that meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll hear from the applicant. State your name and address and affiliation to the case for anything that you would want to add to the staff presentation.
I'm Neil Mayerson, the president of the Mayerson Company, and I do not really have anything to add,
Okay.
but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the commission of the applicant?
Sure. I'll start. 182 units seems like a lot of traffic that would be generated, and ODOT is recommending the traffic impact study. But you have done an access study, is that correct? Did I hear that?
2 traffic studies have been
Okay.
done, an ODOT study and the one that we had presented at the prior public meeting.
Okay.
And then another independent one was done.
So I travel Nagel several times a day, and it's already congested, so I'm curious with the, with the access to Beachmont, have we zeroed in on, I know we're talking about where it is generally, but do we know precisely how that's going to come out onto Beachmont there? The second access point?
There's no new access point to
Okay.
Beachmont.
It's just going to connect into the existing,
Yeah.
okay. And that's, there's no light or anything there, right?
So there is a light, so the idea is to come through the current recycling center, which the future of that is still, the township is still looking at options for recycling, but the idea is to come generally in that area south, and then there is an access point at the light near Applebee's, or
Right.
you could continue straight through the township property by the fire station. So there's a full access there across from Witt, and then there's also the signalized intersection at King Louis.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. DeBaggio?
You may not be the best one to answer this question. I realize I probably should ask you, Paul, I'm sorry. I looked at the water study that, and frankly, I don't understand all those numbers, I'm just going to say that right up front, but it showed that we had enough, they had enough water coming in as of 2012. Since then, there have been additional homes which have been added along there. Do we know for sure that there will not be a problem with that, with them adding 180 units?
There was an additional, there should have been an agency letter in the packet from Cincinnati Water Works that confirmed that's what they were reviewing.
Okay. And then the other question I have deals with the stormwater drainage, and I did go through all this, but I'm a little confused. Is the stormwater primarily being taken off-site? Is that what I read?
Adam?
It's going to be on-site?
Yeah, the area that is due west of Building 1, coming behind the parking, the sheltered parking.
Pardon me, sir?
You wanna come up?
Could you please come to the microphone? Again, state your name and address and affiliation.
I'm Adam Graydon. I'm with CR Architecture and Design at 600 Vine Street. And yeah, we had an engineer create those drawings, and the area that is due west of Building 1 and 2, behind that sheltered parking area, there's a long running north-south detention pond, and some of that will also tie into an existing detention basin that is south of St. Manor. And it goes currently through a culvert underneath that back driveway into St. Manor.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any additional questions right now. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
What is the new height of the tallest building?
40 feet, right? Or not to exceed 40 feet.
Not to exceed 40 feet. When you
I
have a...
should
full-
mention, there's a 20-foot grade from Nagel down to where that building is. So it'll actually, do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I mean, and also part of the parking's below is somewhat recessed on the
Yeah,
one half
I'm
of the
just
parking.
saying
Right.
that the topography.
The line
right
of sight.
now- Yeah. So that 40-foot building will be sitting 20 feet below Nagel.
But it's still 40 where it is on the property,
Yes.
though? Okay. When you went before the Regional Planning Commission, it mentions the amenities and the pool, and I think, Paul, you said it was in the northwest corner where the pool would be. It also talks about a fitness center, a community room, business center. Are those embedded in the existing buildings, or are those separate structures?
In the existing building,
The fitness center and the communication room and the business center?
yes,
Okay. But the pool would be in the northwest corner?
yes.
Okay. No further questions?
Ms. McBride?
Yeah, the Morgan property that's out on Nagel, I'm assuming you probably approached her about including that property?
We have had conversations with her son.
And if you were to, and I'm being speculative here, if you were to acquire that, then would that also remain as open space to maintain the residential nature of Nagel?
Well, we don't have plans right now.
But if you were talking to her, you might have plans, right?
We don't have plans, so I can't, I don't know.
Okay, I ask because obviously
Yeah.
that's leaving an island of a single-family home. You make the most logical partnership for that to go into if this were to be approved. and staff has represented to the commission and to the residents that part of the charm of this development is that it keeps the residential character on Nagel Road. So I just wanted to make sure we were all understanding what that point was going to be. The maximum building height, because we have gotten nothing, no building elevations, nothing, which is very unusual for this commission. So the maximum height of building number 1 would be 40 feet.
Right.
Okay, and
So-
that includes the portion of the parking garage that would be out of the ground, so it's 40 feet from whatever portion of the parking garage up to the top. Does that
No,
include?
no, 40 feet from the ground.
Right, okay. And then does that include, are the rooftop mounted units on top of the building?
Sure,
And are
Right.
those included in that 40 feet?
yes.
And it's a 3-story building?
Hmm?
And it's a 3-story building?
Yes.
Okay. So if we limited it to a maximum height, then you would be okay with that?
Yes. All right.
The building number 1 there, that's going to be the 40 feet, is 130 feet by my scaling to a single-family residence. Did you do any cross-sections on what those folks are going to see from their windows or their patio?
I don't know, have we? Do they? Does Paul have them? Okay. So Paul has something, Paul has whatever we have.
I mean, I would be very interested in seeing cross-sections, and again, that is not untypical for this commission to see, or for any community, obviously, to ask. But do you understand what I'm saying by cross-section, not just a rendering?
Huh? We do not have a cross-section.
I think that's something that I would definitely want to see. So let's talk about the drainage then just a little bit more. So there's obviously a fall to the site to the west, and you're indicating that it's a 20-foot fall. So are you going to be, how much grading are you going to be doing on that site?
I mean, this is still a schematic plan, but according to the, on the civil drawings, most of that grading would be along the west, everything west of basically where you see the corner of, the eastern edge of that building, I'm sorry, the eastern edge of building 1 would be where the predominant amount of grading would come down.
So you're going to raise that?
Yes, it's our understanding that when you're measuring the height of the building, it is from the front of the building. So therefore, the parking garage would not be visible. When you were looking at it from that roundabout, it would be under, and it would be, due to the grade, it would be exposed in the rear of the building.
So the height of the building from the roundabout, I'm standing looking at the front door of the building. What's the height of the building there, including the rooftop equipment?
And we don't have anything spec'd from the mechanical equipment, so I can't exactly say, but.
Give or take. I mean, you're an architect, you know roughly how big those units are.
Yes, they're large, but we haven't actually, I mean, we've gone back and forth talking about whether or not they would be mounted on the ground around. We've done projects where there have been units along the rear, especially if it's open to a garage or something anyway. It wouldn't be directly in front of somebody's window, so there could be ground-mounted units as well as rooftop units. So
Okay,
I'm sorry.
forgetting the rooftop units, which may or may not go there.
Yeah.
So the height of the building, then, I'm standing at the roundabout, and I'm looking at the building, and the height of the building to the top of the parapet, or whatever it is, because we don't have any elevations, is,
It is approximately 38 feet as of right now.
I'm sorry, 30 feet?
38.
38 feet, okay.
38 feet,
And so
based
then
on
I'm
the
going to
record.
walk around to the back, and now I've got my back to, I've gone to the north, and I've got my back to the 2-story apartment building there. And I'm looking at the north elevation of building 1. How high is the building there?
It would be the same. Are you sorry, including the added parking garage is what you're saying?
Yeah, I want to know what the height of, the whole height of the building,
Yes, it would be.
what those folks are going to see.
I think it would be approximately, I couldn't tell you exactly, but it would probably be over 40 feet at that point, in the rear of the
Over
building.
40 feet. So if
In
we
the rear
had
of the
put
building.
a restriction on it of 40 feet, that would be a problem for you guys, wouldn't it?
If it was a restriction all the way 360 degrees around the building,
Yes, it would be. Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to make life difficult for you, but we have no information here. I mean, this is really, really difficult for us. And you know, this is a very dense multifamily development from the very early 1980s I've been a huge proponent of residential, of multifamily development in the township. It's something we lacked, it's something that we desperately need, so I get that. But I am concerned that we're putting this in next to other residential, some of which are single-story, single-family homes, and, other homes on Nagel. And, part of that double D district is to fit these developments where they can become harmonious with adjacent properties.
Yes.
And you really are not giving us the information that we need to make that, or at least this commission member, to make that determination. The landscape plan, what is the proposed, how are you going to be buffering the homes then to the north and the apartments to the north, or more of the homes, single-family homes?
Well, to the north there is the existing berm. There is also a very dense, as you can see in parts of the area, there's a very dense existing wooded area that we would try to maintain as much of that as possible. Everything in that dense area or what would remain of the dense area would be to the north and the east of that large building 1, which is in between building 1 and the single-family homes. There would have to be new things done between Stonegate apartment building and building 1. But, as Neil pointed out, when you look at the actual grade, it would be 40 feet, in the back it could potentially go over 40 feet, but that is if you were standing at the base of the garage. I think that we were attempting to make sure that it's not looming over the adjacent property, not that it's not inside of the property itself, but from the single-family homes and from the Stonegate apartments. That's kind of what I was tasked with doing.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I'm just concerned about what are, the first, westernmost single-family home here, and they're sitting out on their patio, and they've got a 40-plus foot building that they're now looking at. What are they going to see?
We provided Paul
through that
right.
to see where's that mounting, what kind of screening are you going to be putting on that, and then how much of that building are they, we still going to see?
Yeah.
In terms of lighting, obviously the township has lighting requirements, maximum at the property line and maximum height and so forth, which you'd be adhering to. The dumpster locations, I guess is there just the one central location for that?
Yeah, that's how we have proposed for right now. Yes.
So for 3 buildings, you're going to have 1 dumpster? There's 3 there. 1 dumpster location?
One dumpster location is, yes, that's what we have right now.
Then the detention facility, this is going to be dry then? It's going to be a detention basin?
Correct.
And how are you going to treat that?
You'd have to ask the engineer. I don't know.
Okay. The access that is going to go through the recycling, through the township property and then onto the retail development, I assume that there's a cross-access easement, and I think that
Correct.
came out at somewhere along the line. But the access there at Applebee's, that tends to back up on that light. You may or may not have ever been there, but at any rate. And then coming out from Applebee's, that's going to be very difficult. Maybe this is more of a question for our staff, but did their traffic engineer look at the queuing on that light because that's going to be, big opportunity for these guys to get out, particularly in the morning, I would think, or evening, PM peak.
I didn't do the traffic study or review that. That's an applicant
And
question,
that's
not a
something-
township question.
Okay, all right. Well, I get, I've got a number of other questions or whatever, but I'm just really struggling here, guys, not so much with the use, but with the lack of information to make a decision that this is going to be compatible with the surrounding single-family, area. Our section 3.9C in the Double D district indicates that, you're going to provide us with information that indicates the type and character of the development, the screening and the landscaping, and how the track in general is going to be treated. And the purpose of that, according to our zoning code, is to demonstrate harmonious relationship with surrounding properties and protection thereof. And I'm just not getting that this evening. So again, that's one person's comment, question, whatever. So,
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's good. Thank you. I have a couple questions for the applicant. One, have you looked at truly aligning the drive entrance into your development with Pine Terrace? Right now, they're slightly offset, which sometimes creates a sense of confusion for traffic and people driving their vehicles?
Not at that level of detail yet.
Okay. And then it looks like, and previously stated, a shared detention with the SEM development. Is there a easement in place for
It's
that?
not, I don't think it's a shared detention.
Okay.
Oh, shared with Stonegate.
Stonegate?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I apologize. Yes, shared with Stonegate, so there easement in place or negotiations for that to occur? Discussions?
In discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from the commission?
If I can come back. On staff's recommendation, there was 4 points, additional recommendations. Have you read those and agreed to them? Can you put those up, Paul? Want to make sure you have, this is, haven't seen it for the first time. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right here, those 4.
Yes, we understand those as the conditions for the
Possible conditions.
possible conditions for the approval.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now we'll hear from other members of the audience. We would like to, again, to have you, when you come to the podium, state your name and address. We'd like to state only facts, not opinions. And if previously those facts have been mentioned, you can just say, I agree with previously mentioned statements. We'll kind of start on the right-hand side and work our way left, if that's okay. So, ma'am?
My name is Mary Beth Taylor. I live in the second house in on Pine Terrace Drive, right where the access point is going to be.
Paul, could you put
I'm sorry, 8061. Yes, please do put the aerial picture up for a minute. I'm going to talk about that. While he's finding that, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, the one prior to that. That one, thank you. I'm going to talk briefly about a high-level thing, and then I'm going to point out a major problem with this picture and what you've required of them to do. That point number 11 about left turn lanes, I'm going to point something out that's not obvious when you look at this picture. It's only obvious when you live in the neighborhood. First, let me tell you, raise your hand if you're here in opposition to the
Ma'am.
zoning change.
Okay, ma'am, please address all
Sorry.
comments to the commission.
I will. We have signed petitions that Paul knows about and has seen from every single person in this surrounding neighborhood, all in opposition to this. We believe this will dramatically change the feel of our neighborhood. We asked that the same builder had asked for a change in zoning before on some property that eventually became single-family condo units or single-family homes. He wanted to build high-density apartment buildings there. We went through the zoning process, and that was turned down at that time for the same reason. It would change the nature. And so those single-family homes are now the homes that you see that will butt up against this development. There are no other four-story buildings anywhere remotely close to this neighborhood, none at all, not even three-story buildings to my knowledge that we can see from any of our homes. We're not against progress or change. We're not against this property being used by the township to generate more money. I have no problem, and neither does anybody else here. We are against the jump in zoning from single-family to double D, which is a huge density change. We believe it should be maintained as single-family, as it is currently the physical buffer between all the other development and the purely single-family development. So right now, this is the buffer that is left. If you make this double D, we believe you will dramatically not only change the quality of our life trying to get in and out of this street, you will affect the safety of the kids trying to go to Nagel. I remember you mentioned having been on Nagel frequently. One child has already been hit and very seriously injured. The time that people will be leaving for work is the same time that people drop kids off at Nagel. It is packed. It's not just about us being able to get out, although that's a big issue for us in quality of life. It is about the safety of the kids on our two streets who have to walk to Nagel Middle School, and the kids from Stonegate who walk to the middle school. I'm going to point out the inconsistency in this picture for just a minute. Those of you who haven't driven by, the Morgan house that is singled out there is extremely close to Nagel Road. There is no place to put a left turn lane. If you put a left turn lane in there, it will be one car distance, and it will be you'll be turning practically into his house to get to it. So there's not a physical location to put a left turn lane on that part of Nagel. So any of you who have not already driven down this road, please go and look at where that house is located. That's a very long, narrow piece of property, but the house sits right on Nagel Road. And then finally, Paul, Mr. Drury, if you could flip back to the points for the reasons why staff is recommending that this be approved. Okay. A lot of this, I believe, is partly based on conjecture. Okay, the health and safety will be maintained. That's your opinion. We have lots of people in the room here who strongly disagree with that. The proposed change is consistent with prior decisions relating to property in the area. Actually, it's very inconsistent with the change that was made to the other property owned by the Stonegate developers, in which it was maintained that it needed to stay single family to be consistent with the neighborhood. There was some of this is based on the idea that there's this tremendous pent-up demand in Anderson Township for lower maintenance housing, and I don't disagree with that. I certainly can understand that, but I believe we've also recently, as a township, approved some apartments to be built further down by Kroger's, where there's less of a residential field down there. And so I think it's jumping the gun to approve this until we see what happens with that. We would prefer to see if that demand exists and to see it filled in a place that's already business use or high density. There's not much you can walk to from where we live in this neighborhood other than the middle school and Dairy Queen and Donato's. This isn't Hyde Park. You're not selling to people, older people who want to get out and walk around and have lunch on the square. This is not Hyde Park, it's Beachmont Avenue. So we'd like it to be like that, but it's not. So we believe, and especially, this is the first I've heard about left turn lanes. If you start taking over more of our property, you're making it even more dramatic in terms of the impact on the people who already live there.
Thank you. And then the commission would ask if you support the person, you don't have to truly clap for their comments. We understand you support their comments. Again, when you speak, you can say, I agree with the previous statements, and then add anything additional. So anyone else over here? Yes, sir, in the back.
Steve Wood, 8109 Pine Terrace Drive. Been active for many years in the township. I was on the Sidewalk Commission, and the Beachmont Avenue's been a thorn in the side for the Sidewalk Commission since its inception. And I don't know how this development is going to do anything to help Beachmont Avenue when it comes to walks. You guys have a very difficult job, and I'm going to commend you either way that you go. You've got the township making staff recommendations that are subjective, based on subjective national trends that the developer is using, that the township is using, that the residents of Anderson Township adamantly disagree with. We purchased our homes. It was all single family. As it showed up there, there was supposed to be an ingress and egress for the township to get their trucks in and out, which would have been rather innocuous. 2 houses were taken down for that. The house that's left there is on an island. When Mr. Meyerson originally presented to us, he said he would not want a development like this near his home. Pretty simple. If you take a look at the petitions we have, Every resident on Nagel Road does not want this to go through because it's going to create overcrowding. It's going to create undue tax burden potentially on the schools. Has anybody looked at that? We don't know. Am I able to submit a rendering of what we think it's going to look like?
No, that would be a subjective opinion based on their doing the design.
Can I ask you, when we hear that the buildings are going to be 20 foot, okay, we've got a 40-foot limit on the buildings, and we've got 20-foot grade, right? From Nagel Road, can this be amended such that nothing above 20 foot from Nagel Road, as seen on that sight line, can it be amended such that nothing above 20 foot from the Nagel sight line, which would be a single-family residence, be allowed?
Well, I think it goes back to Ms. McBride's comments of there's not really enough information here to support understanding the character of the development, and that's something that we would discuss after hearing testimony from the audience.
Will that be open testimony to the public? Because we don't know either.
Yes, typically we discuss that after all the comments from the audience. We'll discuss that amongst ourselves.
Because
In front of you.
if you look from Pine Terrace Drive to the west, that's going to be our viewpoint right there. And what I wanted to submit to you was a photo overlay that I did, which says, okay, if you look and it's about 30 foot, about where that building's going to be placed, all the trees are going to be gone that are back in there, which is supposed to be screening. If you make a left turn lane into the development, the two major oak trees that are in there right now will be gone. So the original intended use of that property, which was to be a potential walk-through and/or potential driveway, are now totally gone. I wouldn't have bought a home on Pine Terrace Drive, or I would have sold my home years ago if I'd known a 4-story apartment building was going to go in there. Just to let you know. And I think you're going against the true nature of the township if you allow this zoning to go through. We're not opposed to changing the zoning to a potentially slightly higher density, but it's got to be within ramifications, and there's got to be boundaries set, and we really appreciate those comments. So I'd love to, before you take a look at this, but again,
I understand.
there seems to be,
I mean,
there seems to be
unless the
not too much-
commission agrees that we should see it, but again, it's speculative in nature and all the way across.
If the commission agree, take a vote on it.
I would say no. Anyone in support of seeing a speculative idea?
I'd like to hear what staff's thought is on understanding it. But it's all kind of speculative.
Yes.
I would say the case we had with Woodruff 2 months ago, someone came up with information, and we had to wait to see it and review it.
Right.
So I think staff, if we can see it, commission can make their own minds. So I say I have no issue.
Okay. All right, go ahead, sir.
What I tried to do is I tried to size this based on the information we were given previously. It's going to be a nicely amended apartment building.
Do you have anything electronic that we can project?
I do not.
Okay.
It's big enough, I think people can see it. And I have individual copies if you guys would like them. I tried to scale it such that the building, as viewed from the end of Pine Terrace Drive, I took my truck hood up, and my truck hood was right there. One building here, a 3-story building back here. That's a true 3-story building. That's the floor, almost the full floor, but into the ground a little bit based on what I knew about the topography. That's the big building, that's the small building. Now, I don't have this situated quite right. It should be a little more to the left, but again, I didn't have any drawings to go by. So that's what we're going to be looking at if we approve this high-density 4-story building and/or 3-story building.
Paul, isn't it though my understanding that they have amended the site plan since the gentleman maybe did
That
this?
was based on that.
That's got a
drawing up
4-story building,
Yes.
and that's been reduced to 3 stories.
Just to remind the commission as well that I do have a rendering that the applicant emailed. I can put that up.
Let's put
Let's go
that
with
up.
that.
Show it all.
My question would be, is your setback the distance from
I
Nagel?
took the photo So
Okay.
I took it such that it would be scaled down a little. It's not perfect. It's photoshopped, okay?
It's sun-
It's our rendering because
The sunshine and clouds.
nothing's available to us as residents of Pine
Understand.
Terrace Drive and/or the township and/or the commission.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Can we see the renderings?
You have to be patient with me, okay?
Maybe we can go ahead
Yes.
and have somebody.
Any other comments, sir?
I'm going to finish up and say I absolutely agree with everything Mary Beth said, and we would ask you not to go to this density because it's totally differential to what is currently zoned, and it's going to change the whole neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jana Adams, and I live at 1400 Nagel Road. And I live right across the entrance to Stonegate. And Mr. Gothard, just a few minutes ago, mentioned that Pine Terrace, the people coming out of Pine Terrace, and this access coming out of this development are going to be slightly offset, which is what I deal with every day. I only go forward, I never back out, because you can't back out onto Nagel. So I drive forward, and the cars lined up coming out of Stonegate, and I go, should we go? Should we go? And they start to go, and I start to go, and then we stop, and it's lucky to even get a break in the traffic coming back and forth. So when we do get that break, we're ready to go, and it's like playing chicken. It's difficult. So the people coming out of Pine Terrace are going to be facing the exact same thing that I face all the time. It's not easy. Also, there's been a lot of traffic studies done, and I question, has there been a study done as to the number of accidents at Stonegate Drive and Nagel? Has anybody looked at that? Because there's been multitudes of accidents right there in my front yard. Something to think about.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Karen Lupin. I'm at 8079 Pine Terrace. And I first want to agree with everything Mary Beth and Steve said. My main concern would be traffic. Trying to get out of Pine Terrace is often difficult. But with the added, the southern access to Beachmont Avenue, have you looked at the additional traffic created by Fresh Time? And how that's going to deal, that's going to add a lot of traffic going out onto Beachmont too. And then if you dump all of this apartment buildings out too, trying to get out by that single light at Applebee's is hard enough without the addition of Fresh Time and more apartment buildings.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Sean Anderson. I live at 8067 Pine Terrace, and I would like to thank all of you for your service in this difficult case before you this evening. I agree with everything that's been previously stated in opposition, but in the questions you guys have asked have been excellent questions. I guess I would ask you is that this application has taken the DD density to its max and actually had to use the rules to get it under the exemption that's in the zoning code to get that. I know when Stonegate was expanded a few years ago, that density was an issue there, and that density is not at the maximum allowed by DD. So I'd ask you to look at that as you go back through that area. The second thing, again, I want to reiterate on the turning lanes. This is the first time we've seen those, and I would say for most of us, the issue is not getting into our subdivisions, it's getting out of our subdivisions. And to add these turn lanes, you're adding a third lane that will have to cross and try to see past traffic. I think it will increase accidents. I think it will be more difficult when Nagel's queued up in the morning. So please take a look at that as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we do have the rendering, and we're going to display that now.
That was one. And these are aerials. Sorry, which one?
You're going to walk us through them, Paul? The directional?
I think these are the applicants.
Can you please walk us through the direction, what we're looking at? North, south?
Well, right now, you're looking down from an aerial.
Top left.
Yeah. And I
That's
don't...
building one with the pool. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And, okay. And now that is Nagel looking into the proposed entrance at the, and that's the Morgan home on the left, and then the proposed buildings behind it. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. And that is looking from the current Stonegate homes. Well, let's see, the brick building to the right is Stonegate Apartments, and it shows you the kind of the relative size of those two. No? Didn't I say Stonegate? Yeah, Stonegate Apartments. Yeah, on the right, the brick building with the pitch roofs. And then that's the three-story building behind it, the proposed three-story building, to give you a sense of how the two-story with the pitched roofs kind of compares with the three-story with a flat roof.
So in the foreground, is that the Stonegate detention area? In the foreground of the picture?
That's one of the Stonegate detention areas. And we're looking south.
And these, I just want to be clear, these are renderings, they're not based on preliminary grading or, I mean, they're architect's renderings.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions about the renderings from commission? Okay.
I have one. Could I ask you to, Paul, to bring it back to those first two, the smaller ones? Yeah, right there, it's fine.
Trying to figure out.
Okay.
I don't know why that.
To get back to the storm water, the detention pond, and I'm guessing I misunderstood, and that's what I just want to clarify for myself. I am looking at the one with the pool, that I can see the pool, and then I'm looking, if I went, I guess, in a northeasterly direction from that pool, there will be no stormwater there. It will just be taken from there to the one that is currently in place at the current Stonegate Apartments, correct? Or no?
No, from that, in that rendering where you see the pool, it will be going up and to the right, which is more or less due south, and it will run north-south. It's a long linear detention pond. There are civil drawings, I believe, that we gave to MSP. I believe that were already given to MSP. I'm not sure if you have those in your packet or not. But they, but yeah, that, it is self-contained on the site. We are not depending on out-of-site drainage to make the detention pond work. All I was saying was that there is an existing culvert there that I believe is being utilized in terms of some kind of, in some capacity, but I'm really not sure. You have to ask the water engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. what
No,
you-
I realize they're just renderings, but I'm just missing where it is.
It
I don't know
goes
if
from
you
that-
guys can- I've tried looking at that, to be honest with you, it just confuses me more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the pointer to really tell you, but it's basically just everything
Yeah, I can't figure it
west
out.
of there.
Excuse me?
It's everything up and to the right of that pool would be where the...
Where all the
area is.
grass and the trees and the...
Right, yeah, it's nothing modeled as, in terms of a three-dimensional divot right
Okay.
now. It's just where, what's currently showing up as grass with some trees and stuff, that area.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else on the left side? Okay, sir?
I'm Bob Sharp, 1258 Nordica Lane, moved there in 1971. In 1971, we had about 5 foot of sewage water in our basement. Just 2 or 3 years ago, I only had 8 inches of raw sewage in my basement. Now, there's a problem with the infrastructure in Anderson Township. I never knew that Metropolitan Sewer District would pay to clean my basement and buy me new furniture, but the last time they did, they paid me $5,000 or $6,000 to clean up my basement and pay for the, and I think some of these apartments might be lower than my house, and water seems to find its own level. And I think you guys should consider that, and I think you guys should consider it too, because you might have to put a whole new sanitary system going all the way down to Lunken Airport. And I hope you think about this. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your address. I know you said it, but I didn't hear your address.
I can't hear them.
Your street address, I didn't get it when you said it. Where do you live, sir?
1258 Nordica Lane.
Thank
And
you.
all the houses on my street have this problem. And we found out Metropolitan Sewer District pays for it. And that's not Metropolitan Sewer District, that's us. You know. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Meg Collier. I live at 2216 Heather Hill Boulevard. I do not live near the area of this development, but I came because I'm a concerned citizen and a taxpayer, and I live in Anderson Township. And I came here to seek to understand what you're really trying to do. I came in open-minded, without emotion, which I thought was going to make it good to be a neutral party, to come and see what you have to say. And after hearing what they have to say, I'll be honest, I think Mr. Mayerson was unprepared. He had such an opportunity to wow our community with a great opportunity to improve Anderson Township. But I'll be honest, I have to agree with all the people that live on Nagel and Pine Terrace. I just think that they haven't thought through everything. I think it's a little too high for Anderson Township. Yes, I can see that we might need some high-end multi-housing building in Anderson Township. I think we missed the mark on this one, to be perfectly honest. I think, I know we've got some property that's going to come in multi-use down where the Kroger's and all there, which is a great opportunity. I know it's happening in other cities and other communities, but I think they missed the mark, and they had a great opportunity to wow us, and I don't think they did it. I think that we are opening a can of worms with the congestion on Nagel. I think the safety of our children. I agree with her. I don't see how you can do a left-hand lane. I'm not an engineer, but it just seems like it's a pretty narrow street to add a left-hand turn lane, and I commend all of you for your energy and your efforts, and you've had some phenomenal questions, and all of you did, and I really appreciate you seeking to understand what they're trying to do and to hear all of us out as well in our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Paul, pull up those images. Do you want me? This is my wife, Pam Van Sant. I'm Matt Van Sant, 8023 Stonegate Drive. Paul's pulling up some images, and I have handouts. When Pam and I moved on Stonegate about a year and a half ago, I was happy to learn that the township was the property owner to the north, and I expected future development that would be responsible to the township, and I just don't think at this time this application is responsible, and I'm disappointed. So kind of quickly here about compliance with plans and process. This all started back in February. There was a meeting here. It was clear to the township that we were concerned about building heights and the impact in the community. I wrote a letter giving the township feedback, going over many, many details because of the lack of information that was in that application, and I understand why it was that way, because it's not required to be full of detail. In May, there was a submittal. The detail, again, wasn't provided. I think the process says they may do certain things, but there were not a lot of things that must and shall be provided. So here we are redesigning and putting our own images together because of a lack of detail. And then lastly, in July, I was down at the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, and it came up again, a lack of detail. It's hard to really tell about these building heights and the intensity of the development. But one thing has come through, kind of loud and clear from the township, and that is that they want to see this site in multifamily. And so rather than quarrel about that, what I want to do is spend my time talking about density. So what you see on the map up here and the map behind you is a big dark line, and it for me is a delineation to the north of low-density residential and to the south, Beachmont, and more intense uses. I didn't do an inventory of stories of buildings on this drawing, but I could tell you, I believe probably 95% of the buildings on the north side of that line are 2 stories. There are probably exceptions, the school building, perhaps some other kinds of things. And to the south, there's more intense development. My position is this is way too dense. You know, we have single-family homes to the north, had probably densities of 2 to 4 units per acre. To the west, you have the existing Stonegate at 20 units per acre, and to the south, you have this intense development. My concern is, where's the transition here? Why is it that this proposal, this application, comes right up to the property line at 20 units an acre? Why isn't it 6 units an acre or 8 units an acre or something other than 20? And there doesn't seem to be any attempt here in the application to become a transition. And density is what's driving all the problems that we're talking about tonight. Building heights, traffic congestion, water management. It's all driven by the assumption that 20 units an acre is appropriate at this location at this time. The next drawing is about the bulk of the buildings, again lacking any kind of cross-sections or anything. This is an Eastgate area looking east at the new Avalon Apartments. Those are 4-story because we really weren't sure whether the parking garage was going to be underground or not. No idea what to base our positions on. So I took a picture of this building at a place that would be my backyard on my patio. This is at about 300 feet. To, I think, the biggest building. I don't know whether that's building 1 or building 2. And I have neighbors that are going to be half of this distance from this building. There is a mound between me and that building if I was standing in my backyard, but I just want the commission to understand, I think this is way too bulky. I think it was somewhat sensitive in the building's locations, moving them to the west and to the north, but we're just trying to jack too many units on a parcel of land that I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. I will effectively become a public road on my north, a public road on my east, a driveway on my south immediately, serving this development. You can take that picture down, but I just think it's way too much. And so I'll spend the rest of my time, and the last page in the handout I gave you are the details of my remarks from back in March, where I commented on such things as views and vistas and streetscapes and access, and it goes on, and this is, Paul, in the record, so I hope either at the preliminary or final development stage some of these things will be considered, but we are concerned about this driveway being in our backyard, so the privacy is gone. There'll be noise. In Hamilton County, there was testimony that this will be about 1,000 trips a day, you know, over a 12-hour period, 7 in the morning to 7 at night. That's over 100 an hour. Do the math, it's going to be intense. Stonegate on the north is about 269 units using Stonegate Drive. This is proposed to be 182 units on a driveway with potential access out to Beachmont on the south. So I just want to say I don't think this is a good plan at this time, not enough detail. I don't think we should be sending these kinds of cases on to the township trustees with this kind of situation. The speaker prior to me almost took the words right out of my mouth. This was a great chance to really sit down with the residents and the township and put together a plan here that we can celebrate and move forward with. but instead we're arguing about building heights and we don't even know what they look like. We don't know what the parapets are going to be, we don't know what kind of roofs they're going to be, and this kind of goes on and on with this lack of information. So, would you like to add? All right.
Hello. I'd just like to make this a little bit more personal. I am one of the houses that backs up to the new driveway that is proposed. We've heard 2 or 3 different ideas about how this driveway was going to come in, and I actually thought initially it was going to be on the other side of that single-family home. And I wasn't too worried about it, and there was going to be a retention pond there and lovely landscaping, blah, 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 is what we heard at first. Well, that's certainly not what it is. Now I'm probably going to have a street light and traffic about 30 or 40 yards from my bedroom window is sitting right there. Then when I go outside my bedroom, I get to go to the living room where I have a big, huge window overlooking the landscaping, et cetera, in an empty lot, and now I'm going to have to look at traffic in an apartment building. Then I go out to my patio that I just built in the back of my house, and I'm going to have to listen to all the noise, the light, the traffic, cars, and have absolutely no privacy at all, because those folks are going to be able to look out their window right down into my private space. That, by the way, I bought from Mr. Marison, who developed the property. So, you know, obviously I'm not very happy about the personal effect on my home that I just purchased here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Steve Johns. I live at 8069 Sacred Heart Lane. My wife and I moved there in 1983 and have loved it ever since, raised 4 kids. We've seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood since we've moved there. A couple of increased traffic. One was when they put the post office in, but that was okay to us because originally they were going to put office buildings south of Sacred Heart Lane all the way down to Beachmont. We fought that, and the compromise, they put Pine Terrace in behind us, which we love. It gave us great new neighbors, and the post office, which is nice to have handy, even though it's more traffic, especially at the holidays and tax time. The other thing was the new school, which that generates a lot of traffic, but we don't mind. We moved there because they had good schools in our Anderson Township, and our kids got a good education, and good schools keep your property values up. So even though it's a little frustrating early in the morning and in the afternoons, we put up with it because it's needed. The thing that bothers me is the first presentation we were at when we were given the traffic study. Now, I don't know if there's been one since then, but this wasn't a Hamilton County study. It was done by a consultant paid by the Marison Company. Now, you might have impeccable credentials, but I lost count of times that during his presentation in the question and answers, he started out a sentence with, "I assume." Well, Custer assumed there was only a small band of Indians over the mountain, too. We know how that turned out. And then, Ms. McBride, you brought up the traffic light that they're talking about. And if you're local, if you're in Applebee's or Ameristop and you want to go use the light since it's safer, it takes 2 or 3 cars and you're screwed unless you want to drive back in the parking lot, come around. But you have Ollie's traffic, which is more in the holidays. This new produce stand, how many is that going to make? And if it's going to take you 3 lights to get out of there, if I move in that place, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go to Nagel. And then the only way to alleviate the backup is if you lengthen that light. And what's that going to do to the rest of the traffic pattern on Beachmont? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Judith Doyle, and I live at 6937 Salem Road, but I own the business property at 1221 Nordica Lane. I would like to say that I do agree with the previous speakers. I see a lot of the problems myself. In fact, our basement was badly flooded by backup from the storm sewer, and I know that it's a real problem in that area. So if a project like this were to go through, I hope that you'll be very, very conscientious at making sure that that particular problem is basically addressed, and that it won't aggravate the problems that already exist. Also, I just wanted to make a comment that it's my hope that you all, and you've been very perceptive and very good in some of your questions so far, I'm hoping that you consider that the money that could be derived from such a sale might look appealing at this time, but what are the long-term expenses and things that have to be given up in exchange for it? And I think you need to consider the necessary improvements that need to be done to accommodate such a project, and also the ongoing costs. For instance, if they make an exit that goes through township property, the pavement and so forth is going to have to be maintained with all this excess traffic that's going to be going in and out. So I just hope that it doesn't seem appealing just because of the initial sale of the property and the money that that generates. I hope that you can also look at the long-term costs to the community and to the budget that might result from this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I am Chris Copers. I live on Yellow Glen, which isn't a couple streets over from Nagel. And I guess I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I would totally oppose the development. But then again, on the other hand, I do see some of the benefits for the money, but from a healthcare perspective, which is what I work in the ER every day as a nurse practitioner, I see overdose after overdose after overdose, and no one's ever mentioned any kind of crime, drug. We already have drugs in Anderson that are bombarded on both sides of us from Mount Washington and Cherry Grove. Putting in 100 and some units, it's not 100 and some 80 some people. That's one person living in each unit. So they're going to have kids, they're going to have spouses, they're going to have significant others. It's not just 180 people. Crime and drugs are very rampant in high density areas, and this is not a very good place. We already have trouble in jewel lifts. I just feel that it's just too much density for a population that's going to be safe for our kids when there's a school right there.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir.
My name's Luke Perry, 8133 Pine Terrace. And I'd just like to say that we have, as a neighborhood, met a few times with other members of the township government, met with one of the trustees, and I personally met with the financial officer and a few, and the township administrator. And in both of these meetings, we've really been given three core reasons why the township is coming out for this. The trustees and the administrator have certainly indicated they're in favor of the approval of this zoning change. The things that they've told us, two of them have been addressed by previous speakers, all of whom I agree with. The first thing was that there's this pent-up demand. They've already addressed that. The second thing is, let's be like Hyde Park. People have addressed that. It's not Hyde Park. The last thing was that the township is in revenue trouble, that there's a tax shortfall, and that bringing in high-density housing is a good way to get more tax dollars. And in my meeting, I just want to say this for everybody's benefit, because in my meeting with the township financial officer, even with the TIF program that this apartment could fall under, the difference between the tax revenue that you could get by building single-family homes on here versus what you can get by building this high-density development is really a drop in the bucket when you look at the township budget. So I guess what I'm saying is the three core reasons that the township administrators and officials have presented to us for approval have kind of all been debunked tonight, I feel like, by the previous speakers, and I would appreciate it if you would vote to not approve this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Yes, sir.
My name's Nick Lang. I live on 1406 Hart Court, and I have 3 small children. I haven't heard anything about how this will affect these schools. as far as influx of children all at once. Have we heard any feedback on what we're expecting with this many units and this many families coming into the facility? We moved here for a reason. We moved across town was because of the excellent schools, and specifically in that house that we're in. And it changes things if my children cannot go to the school that I moved here to send them to, if there's quite a bit of children moving in. The other one is that a lot of those pictures that were shown by Mr. Mayerson are with leaves on trees. And I can tell you that the leaves are only on the trees for 4 months out of the year. So as much as they're trying to disguise it up there from the view that we will see at the end of, either driving by or at the end of Pine Terrace, whatever, when you look down that road, you will see those buildings. There's nothing that's going to disguise that unless you throw up enormous evergreens all over the place. But those are my two little bits, and I do agree with every statement that's been made tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Yes, sir. In the very back.
Hi, I'm Chris Kepner at 8132 Pine Terrace, and I want to say I agree with all the comments that suggest we are not in favor of this zoning change. I just wanted to point out, and it may have been said already, but that we're putting another high-density apartment complex next to another high-density apartment complex. So within a reasonably small area, we are having an extreme density issue. So I'm just saying that why don't we spread it out a little bit more if we're going to change the nature of Anderson a little bit to include more high-density apartments. We should consider the idea of spreading it out a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Emily Trickey. I live at 8073 Pine Terrace Drive. Both of these gentlemen before actually brought up very good points regarding the landscaping. We moved from, originally from Cincinnati, but moved back from Columbus, Ohio, which was one of these multi-unit places, and I can tell you from experience we still own that property. It's very hard to sell because of further development within the area, and also the contractor that provided us with our home went bankrupt and didn't have very well put together company to follow up with the rest of the construction of the home. So I do believe there is a place for young adults and for aging retired parents that want to move out and not have as much of a yard to take care of. My mother lives in a condominium actually over on the west side of town that is surrounded by trees outside of a neighborhood, Bridgetown or Bridgepoint Drive. So I do believe that there's a place for everyone. At the same time, as far as landscaping, back to my point of growing up, or when we first got married, moving into a condo, that just now I drove by there, which is 15 years later, and these trees are barely 10 feet tall. So when you're talking about, you know, backing off and, you know, kind of blending in with the rest of the neighborhood, 4 stories isn't going to blend, and grills and patio furniture and everything that those residents have to look at outside their back doors. So I think the landscaping is a very key point with this. I disagree in the zone change, but that's something pretty basic, as the gentleman before said, you know, with the leaves. I also I was at the initial meeting that Mr. Mayerson presented, and felt that it was unprepared. The team was unprepared, which was shocking to me because they had been here before with Stonegate, and when this was before I was here, but residents in the area had also disagreed with any kind of zone change there. It is very adamant that all of us are pretty passionate and well prepared on how we care about our neighborhood, and I'm sure you want more residents like that, and to keep those happy. So I guess I expected more from this third meeting, as others did, to at least show us that there is care for Anderson Township and what happens here, and not just about commerce. I'm concerned about the kids during the construction of these change lanes. I agree with everybody else, what they've said about the turn lanes. I see the kids walking. I live on Pine Terrace, about halfway down the street, east, and I don't know, even during construction, where these kids are going to get, and the bus is coming back and forth to be able to satisfy that. I guess with the only company that's presented here being the Mayerson Company and the history with what we have, I ask that you consider those items, and I also agree with Mr. Mayerson, I wouldn't want this in my neighborhood.
All right, seeing no additional hands from the audience. I'm sorry, one additional hand from the audience.
Hi, James McClellan. I live at 8053 Pine Terrace Drive. I was really hoping not to speak, but so I agree with all the points that have been raised here tonight. I guess the one thing I wanted to mention is property values. And for the McClellan family, the largest investment we've ever made is choosing to buy a house in Anderson Township. My home is actually the first one on the corner there, and as we talk about widening Nagel potentially with a turn lane, as it was pointed out, we're probably not going to be able to go much into the Morgan family because it's an older home. It was built closer to the road. The road really wasn't that wide when we first moved in, so probably not going to be able to move much further to the west, so we'll have to come to the east. Between my view and kind of cutting that down, my friends on Stonegate and their view, Nordica, everyone else is really, when I go to resell my home, well, what am I going to get for that? I mean, I'm going to have people come in, they'll fight the traffic, they'll see that it's evident, they'll see the buildings across the way, the density's changed. So I guess I looked at this committee here to not just look at the change. It seems like staff is very bring this in, but to also consider the property values of your residents, the people who invested in Anderson Township, and what this is going to do to them. Okay, how do we bring in change but still maintain our values?
Right. Thank you. Okay, now I don't think we see any additional arms. I would like to go back and see if the applicant has any additional information they'd like to share, or if they want to consider coming back with additional information for the commission to make a ruling, things like that.
We don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I ask the architect, I just want to get him to clarify, because you made a comment, and I just want to make sure I understood it, that the detention basin for this was totally on the site that we're talking about this evening, and that it was not impacting the existing Stonegate detention.
Yeah, I believe that's true.
Okay. That is, I mean, that's not what these plans show.
Okay. Okay.
Could you, so everyone can hear the response?
Yeah.
Yeah, state your name and address, please.
I'm Bob Luby with the Mayerson Company. And the proposed development does access one of the retention basins along Stonegate on the west side.
And so are you going to be increasing the volume of that basin then?
Yes.
Okay. And
Just
so,
its
Paul,
depth.
will we be seeing those revised plans for the double D for Stonegate on that basin then?
Are you requesting they submit it to you?
Well, I mean, I'm saying if it's going to alter the,
It will be reviewed by Hamilton County.
except that's a double D district, right?
Correct.
So if it starts to, I mean, yeah, it's going to get closer to the buildings and so forth. I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
yeah, I mean,
It's
they're
primarily-
increasing the volume of this basin. And so that's impacting that whole double D that we would normally see. So, I mean, that would be something.
It's primarily a increase in the depth, but yes.
Any discussions amongst the commission?
Are we closing the public hearing now?
Yes, I'm sorry. We'll close the public hearing now, and we'll discuss among the commission anything that we've heard tonight, any other information that we want to share.
Well, I'll just throw out here. I I've been on the commission a long time. I know I don't look that old, but I have been on the commission a long time. And I was on the commission when we reviewed and approved the single-family component of Stonegate. And I was on the commission when we approved the dentist office on Nagel. And in both of those instances, the commission was very careful and very concerned about maintaining the residential character on Nagel. The poor dentist, I think he came back at least twice because we wanted to see revised elevations and so forth to make sure that building had a residential character to it. I have to say I'm very disappointed in the application package that we have this evening. You simply have not given us or the community enough information to make an intelligent decision on this request. I, for one, would like to have your traffic engineer come and make a presentation on traffic. Obviously, that's not the main component, but I personally would like to hear that, and I think some of the residents would like to hear that. I personally would like to see cross-sections based on a grading plan, not a rendering. I'd like to see one from Nagel at Pine Terrace. I think Mr. McClellan's second floor of his home would probably be an excellent place to take that cross-section from. I also think probably one from the Winters property on Stonegate and maybe the Van Sant's property, since they were here this evening on Stonegate. And what are these folks going to see from their patios or from their second-story building windows? I'd like to see conceptually what those buildings are going to look like. For a living, I do what you gentlemen do. And I would not have submitted this application package. I would not be asking the commission to approve buildings that have no idea, no lockdown on the height or where the mechanicals are going to be or what type of screening or buffering you're going to be proposing. It's just not acceptable, guys. And I would also, I obviously want to see landscaping and grading in terms of the mounding and so forth, and you know how that's all going to fit into the development if in fact it is ever to be approved. And again, I think that all goes to perfectly within our rights of the Section 3.9C of the Double D district, because we cannot make a fair decision on this development as it relates to the surrounding property owners with the information you've given us. So I'm going to be suggesting that we table this evening, and we will give them another chance. That would be my suggestion.
I would agree with your points. I'm concerned about the package, the lack of the information. I've been on it for a couple of years. I've never seen 8, 12 caveats, contingencies, but I'm more concerned about the whole traffic of what's going to happen on Nagel. We really can't expect people to go through the retail with the new fresh time and all that. I've come to Applebee's and tried to get out of there, and it's, certain times of day you sit through 3 or 4 lights. So I would hope we would come up with a more amenable solution to the traffic. I would like to see a study.
I am in agreement with you, especially Ann, about tabling it. I just feel like there's not sufficient information for us to make any kind of an educated decision. There are a lot of questions. Traffic is major. What everybody's going to be seeing is major. It is primarily a residential area, and for us to make this drastic change to Double D, it needs to be a little clearer to us as to what it's going to look like and how it will actually impact everyone who presently resides in that area.
I'm not a huge fan of tabling the issue. I think some closure would be good one way or the other. I think it's important to note that the township seems pretty dead set on some sort of multifamily at this location someday. For me, I think the density is a concern, and the traffic issues associated with that. But my preference would be to take a vote tonight and put this behind us. I feel like I feel like they had a chance to bring the information, and they brought the information they felt was appropriate, and I would prefer to make a decision based upon that.
Okay. And I guess my point of view is, we could ask the applicant if they want to table it or if they want us to vote on it tonight based on what you've heard. Assuming something's... Make that decision? Okay.
I'll go so far as I'm going to make a motion on case 2-2016 Anderson, a zone change request for 1339 and 1357 Nagel Road, and a portion of the two properties on Beachmont Avenue, that we table this until our next meeting. And I hope that the applicant has listened to the very specific directions that this commission has given them with regards to coming back to us.
Mr. McBride, if we table it, can we reopen the public hearing portion so that we can take additional testimony if needed? So
At the next
it would
Yes.
it would
I would
reopen.
incorporate that into my motion.
Okay, just to clarify, it would reopen. Well, this is the zoning commission's discussion.
Sir. Sir, I'm sorry. Right now, it's among the commission, so.
You robbed us of our opportunity to petition and start a successful campaign, put this on the ballot.
Sir,
We have
first
not-
of all, this is just the
Right.
commission, but so you understand that 30-day referendum period does not begin until the Township Trustees act.
Understood, but we need more time for something like that.
So.
I
Ms.
made a
Mc-
motion.
Ms. McBride made a motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Could you call roll, please?
Mr. Boone?
No.
Mr. Baggio?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Goffard?
Yes. Okay, with
Okay.
that,
And just so to clarify, the case has been continued and open, the public hearing portion will remain open for additional testimony. It will be up to the applicant of when they return to the zoning commission. The next two meetings, the closest ones, they're always the fourth Monday of every month. One would be August the 22nd. The September meeting would be September the 26th. Depending on how quickly the applicant can turn around information, essentially. So it will be up to the applicant. We will post the property again once the application has been made and we know exactly what date. And continue to watch our website as well.
thank you. So anything else that we're looking for next month that you know of
Not
at this
that
time?
I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. Like to entertain a motion to close and adjourn the meeting?
Motion to close.
Second?
Adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll
Aye.
call or just? Aye.
Okay.